It was actually an interdimensional contact event, which is really interesting because when it happened, the only thing I could think was, it looks like a spaceship. It looks like an interdimensional spaceship above my head when I looked up. It was so alien. When we stopped, then the other guidance I got was just to look up to the left, So I did. I intuitively looked up, and there, as I looked up, was this amazing Merkaba light ship just flying across the sky, and it was just so magical. It was so synchronistic, so magical. That's what led me to these realizations, to these amazing synchronistic experiences, because synchronicity is the preference of these higher dimensional beings, especially interdimensional beings. They absolutely adore to create these anomalies. You can call them anomalies within the matrix. These synchronicities that really make you question, like they blow your mind. They make you realize that there's a higher intelligence here, actually, and it's supporting this shift from 3D to 5D. So what I've been shown is that the new Lemuria, it's a spiritual concept that envisions a modern day revival or resurgence of the ancient civilization known as Lemuria. Okay, and like I said, Lemuria was this ancient advanced civilization that existed actually millions of years ago, up until about 12,000 years ago, when we had the last cataclysmic event.
Good morning, friends. This is Mike Siglar reporting from nature, a little bit sleepy. It's morning here. Check out where I'm based. This is my local lake. So I live nearby, and this is just such a nice bonus. I can come here in the mornings, in the summer, have a swim, connect with nature and get my energy up, and also detach from all the challenges at least for a moment. It gives me a nice boost, because I think everyone is going through challenges currently, because we are going through a process of ascension, and this is the main topic of the interview that I prepared for you today with Honovi Strongdeer, who is a female shaman based in Peru. So we are talking about the shift into 4th and 5th density, Kundalini awakening, extraterrestrial contact, plant medicine, and all sorts of weird and crazy things. So I hope you're gonna enjoy this episode of TruthTheory podcast. And one more thing before we're gonna start, I just want to say that Honovi is organizing a retreat in Peru, in some of the most beautiful locations all around Machu Picchu and some of the main sites in Peru. And it's a plant medicine retreat. It's a 10-day retreat in December this year. It's called Ancient Activations. And from what I heard, it sounds like a life-changing experience. So I don't know if you ever have done plant medicines or not. I've done it. I used to do it, and it was definitely life-changing for me. So I think you might want to check it out if you want to go to Peru in December. They have limited spaces. It's only for 13 people, and there is a screening process, so you need to apply, because it's plant medicine. So obviously they need to check if you are someone who will handle it properly and things like that. But if you want to learn more about it, check out Honovi's website. It's chaiwiththecosmos.com. Click on retreats and you can read more about it. It's an exclusive retreat, 10 days in Peru, in some of the most beautiful sites in Peru. And there is a gift. So if you're gonna decide to apply and you're gonna get accepted, you can get a discount, $300 discount. If you're gonna quote TruthTheory, you're gonna get $300 discount. So remember that. It might be a life-changing experience. I honestly believe that. So if you are interested, you want to go to Peru in December, check out chaiwiththecosmos.com and click on retreats. So enough of me talking. As you can see, I'm a little bit sleepy, wakey. Still morning here, but enjoy the interview with Honovi Strongdeer. Okay, this is Mike Sigula from TruthTheory.com, and this is TruthTheory Podcast, and my guest today is Honovi Strongdeer. Strongdeer is a New Earth leader, shamanic priestess, channeler, and international speaker. She's also a sound healer, singer, musician, dancer, and artist. Honovi specializes in taking people to sacred sites for ancient activations on her international retreats, combining sacred plant medicine, Kundalini, and meditation for once-in-a-lifetime experiences. She teaches on the new human blueprints, solar consciousness, and Kundalini Shamanism, a modality she has channeled, innovated, and developed herself, bringing together the science of Kundalini and shamanism. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Really nice to connect here.
Yeah, it's. I'm kind of really curious. First, I want to ask you about your name, because is it like something as a priestess and shaman, something you kind of decided to name yourself in this way, or can you tell me a little bit more about it? Maybe it's a silly question, but I'm just curious.
No, it's an interesting story, actually. So thanks for asking that question. I like that question. So the name, I actually received it from my guides, who are a group of interdimensional extraterrestrial intelligences, and they're known as Arya or Aria, and they're the ones that gave me the name. They used to actually call me Deer, and I didn't quite understand what they meant. And then they started calling me Strongdeer, and then later I learned the Hopi name, the Native American Hopi name for Strongdeer is Honovi. So then that piece came in, because Honovi actually means strong deer. So my name, Honovi Strongdeer, it's actually repeating the same thing, but in a different way, which is kind of interesting. It's repeating, it's basically saying strong deer. And so that's how I received the name. It was given to me by my guides.
And who are these guides? Do you know exactly what species or group they are?
Yes, I would
what's
describe
the connection
them,
also?
Yes. I would actually describe them as an alliance of several different interdimensional races. One would be Sirius, one of the stronger or dominant frequencies of this collective. And another would be Lemuria. And Lemuria is an ancient civilization that sank underneath the water due to a certain cataclysm, because let's say the consciousness was not going in an optimal expansive direction. And the Lemurians were very advanced, in their consciousness, spiritually, psychically. It was a completely different society. And the time we're going into, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this because it's just coming through as a download really strong, is this transition into 5D. And my guides actually call it the new Lemuria. It's the new Lemuria 5D bridge that is rising again in consciousness because of all these, massive shifts. But anyway, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. I hope that answered your question about.
No. Yeah, I assume that the reason why they would call it the new Lemuria is because things are cyclical, and this shift is every whatever period, right? It's like some people say 70,000 years, some people say 25,000 6,000 years, right? So
it's not. It's around 26,900.
Yeah, and when did?
But there's different numbers, Doesn't actually matter. The numbers don't really matter so much because the numbers are not actually fixed, because that's not how the universe is anyway. So in all likelihood, these cycles they're not happening on an exact, because time itself is changing and morphing anyway. So, it's just, but it gives us a framework when we put a number to it to better understand, right? But at the same time, when we go into nonlinear thinking, which is what the 5D is, we start to not be so fixed and start to see, there's different ways, because as we expand in consciousness, we start to view everything in a completely different way. That's what I realized with this whole, prophecy and predictions and time anomalies. What's really interesting. Sorry, I'm so excited for the talk we're having today.
No. I like the topic. The main topic is also something very close to my heart.
Yeah, because I feel that it's good to have a discussion about how these 5D shifts actually feel viscerally, because we are going through a dimensional shift, and everyone's at a different point along that journey, or they're on a different timeline, which is the topic of today too.
Yeah, before we're gonna get into this subject, because I think this is one of the very important topics I wanted to cover, I would like to know how you got to where you are now, because you obviously had an awakening, some kind of awakening, and you developed your own abilities and methods and modalities, and your path unfolded into what you're doing now in Peru with sacred sites and channeling and shamanism and plant medicine. So maybe you can summarize, your journey from when it started until now. Were you always interested in these types of topics, or was it like some period when things started happening? And maybe you can give us like the most important, points on your evolutionary timeline.
Sure. Well, firstly, I've always felt like an alien. How many of the viewers can relate to that? I've always felt very different since I was a young child. I was very spiritually inclined as a very young child. I wasn't someone who just woke up, although I know there's many different layers to awakening. But for me, I was always very spiritually tuned in, because I grew up as a Sikh. My family is actually from India, from the East India. I was making a joke to my friend here in Peru and saying, "Oh, we're both Indians, but just different kinds." I'm from the mainland continent, and you are here in Peru, because the people actually look very similar. But we can talk about that later, because the reason the people look similar is because there was extraterrestrial involvement of displacing, not really displacing, or I would use the term placing people in certain parts of the world, and that's why the people here in Peru, they really look like people in India, and vice versa, and the other connection to that is Lemuria, because what people don't realize when I was talking earlier about Lemuria is that Lemuria actually was in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. And so it would have been from India into Polynesia and Hawaii. It would have been in Fiji, Japan. It would have been Rapa Nui or Easter Island. And then it would have been in Peru to a certain point, and also West Coast California, And so going back to what I was saying earlier. So when I was younger, I was very spiritually tuned in, and I was always questioning reality. I was always wondering why it was the way it was. I would kind of observe my parents working really hard, and then I would think, what is, like, who created the rules here in this place? What is this place? Is it a matrix? And so very early on, I was very interested in extraterrestrial intelligences. I grew up watching the X-Files. Does anyone remember that?
Yeah,
I,
I remember.
yeah, you don't remember that?
I remember. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, you
I
remember.
remember
I
that.
was addicted to
Scully
that.
and Mulder.
Yeah, I was addicted to that. So I would be watching that every week, religiously, especially the UFO episodes. When I look back, I can start to see that there are these threads in my life, these synchronicities, these messages, or what I was interested in. Another thing I was really interested in was Buddhism. I was very interested in Buddhism as a young child, of like 8 years old. And so I would like read about it or ask questions about it. And when I was about 4 years old, I would actually talk to my mother about reincarnation, because remember, I grew up as a Sikh, and it's a completely different belief system, structure. For me, it's one of the more progressive or expansive religions. I must say, though, I'm not really a fan myself personally of religion, although I respect if people, have their own beliefs and whatnot. But anyway, going back to my story, so I started out really spiritual, but then I kind of as I got older, I kind of started to disconnect from that and assimilate into the matrix and conform more, and be like other people in society. And it wasn't until my 20s, let's say mid 20s, when I had a massive spiritual awakening, and my world was turned upside down. And it was actually a Kundalini awakening. And Kundalini is this primal, ancient, evolutionary spiritual energy that everyone has access to. And it's also part of the shifting consciousness to 5D. The Kundalini plays a very crucial role. I didn't really know this until more recently, but I had this Kundalini awakening, and the Kundalini actually entered through my crown chakra. So it was very intense. Everything went white. It all happened 100% natural, because I am a priestess and a medicine woman or a shaman, whatever term you want to give it. And so everything went white, and I actually started to leave my body. Now, this for me was my spiritual awakening, because I was already kind of spiritually tuned in, but I had kind of, like everyone else here, forgotten. I had forgotten that I had incarnated with a mission, with a purpose. I had really fallen into great amnesia and forgetfulness about why I was here, which is what happens to a lot of people. And then normally, especially if you have a specific contract, pre-birth, pre-incarnation, you will get some kind of awakening experience. If you're not already on that trajectory, it depends, there's different nuances for different people, depending on their soul evolution, what they agreed to pre-birth, so on and so forth. But this was actually something I later learned I had agreed to pre-birth. And later I learned it was the extraterrestrial interdimensional beings that I work with. In a sense, they gave me something called Shaktipat. And Shaktipat is when someone gives you the Kundalini. They also call it descending grace. in these circles of the Kundalini science, you know. And so at the time, though, I had no idea. So you can imagine my shock. And I was so afraid. I thought I was dying. I thought, oh, this is what happens when you die. You must just leave your body. But then I was very confused, though, because nothing had happened. I was just relaxing. I hadn't taken any plants or anything. It all happened 100% natural. And it changed my entire life. After that, my whole life just turned around. It wasn't until a few years later when I started working with Madre Ayahuasca, or Mother Ayahuasca. Madre is how we say in Spanish here in Peru. And I have a lot of respect for the medicine, so I refer to her always as Madre Ayahuasca. And so and that is a brew from the Brazilian Amazon and Peruvian Amazon that allows you to access these amazing, expansive states of consciousness. And so when I started working with Madre Ayahuasca, then my awakening went to another layer. You see, there's many different layers to awakening, as I was saying.
I wanna catch you off for a second.
Yes.
Because I'm interested in what you said about Kundalini awakening. So we met in London maybe 10 years ago or something, and I remember this conversation about Kundalini because I think I went through something very similar. So in around 2008 or 9, I was already into some kind of healing modalities, Qigong, methods similar to Reiki. So already kind of preparing myself for Kundalini awakening, which wasn't even conscious, you know. I was already like practicing Qigong or Qigong for like 2 years. And one evening, I smoked a little bit of cannabis, went to bed, and then I saw this white light in front of my forehead or something on top of my head. And I started having this energy going through me, where I was shaking in bed for like 40 minutes or something, like having electric.
It came through your crown too.
Yeah, and so from that moment, that evening, I became sensitive to energies. You know, I started feeling like energies of trees, for example, or I would go to church and I would like start feeling my chakras and things like that. And later on, I started feeling my guides. They would like tap me in the right hand, left hand, or whatever, you know, to communicate.
Right.
Once I had it activated. And during one of my plant medicine sessions, I was explained that it wasn't an accident. It was something I agreed on before incarnation to have it activated so I can be more sensitive. So it kind of sounds a little bit similar to what you experience. Yeah.
Yes. And then what happened? Thank you so much for sharing that, by the way. That's an interesting synchronicity. What happened was when I started working with Madre Ayahuasca, then I went to another layer of my awakening, and the beings actually started to speak through me, and they told me who they were. They started to actually talk through me in another language, which some people call star language or light language. I mean, I can even share some if you want me to.
I mean, of course you can do it.
Yeah, I will share. One moment. Zua e yaka. Yaka yue e yuapa ia yoana e yu na da 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 da.
Okay, thank you. Was there a meaning behind it?
It's like a combination of singing and it's well, the light languages, they can come through that way because they're frequencies, right? But the meaning is not really so good to be described. It has to be interpreted by the person. That's the way I've been shown. But it did have a meaning. But it'll be interesting to see in the comments if there was something that people tuned into specifically when they heard it, because it was a little bit of an activation too. This is what happens with these frequencies. Because another thing that was happening along my awakening was when I would go to the movie theater. I mean, I don't actually watch movies anymore, thankfully. But when I used to go to the movies, I would always go to movies only to do with like science fiction. It would always be science fiction. It would always be spaceships and stuff like this. I don't know, like movies like Gattaca, movies about the future. Very, very interesting. All very sci-fi. When I look back, and every time I would see a ship on the screen, it would actually activate me, and I would start channeling the language. My friend would be like, "What are you doing?" Like my sister would be like, "Are you okay?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just getting these really strong urges to just express this light language as I'm sitting here in the movie theater, because you see these images, they're activating our DNA as well. A lot of us who have this extraterrestrial hybrid DNA, because DNA is multidimensional, and a lot of us actually have 12-strand DNA and beyond, 24-strand, 48-strand DNA, and the Kundalini is a very significant part of that too, because the Kundalini, it's coming in, it's popping people like popcorn. A lot of people are having activations, and it's bringing this DNA online. And so when we do things that are very visual, kinesthetic or sensory, it's activating memories too. This is happening all the time, and it's also happening through synchronicity. All this was coming through very strong to share with the audience, because I'm sure there's people out who've had their Kundalini or some kind of experience with Kundalini,
And so I want to actually mention one thing, because recently I've been getting this insight that I should start meditating on 8th chakra. And apparently there are 12 chakras. I don't know if this is something you are familiar with, but
there's actually more than 12.
It's likely, but it's something that I've been getting to start meditating on, like the point 40 centimeters above my head. And
I've been showing that there's 24. There's 24 chakras.
Okay. And when I've been doing that, I feel, the energy that I get, it's very powerful, very interesting. Like it's white light, but it's very much cleaning my aura. So it just started coming to me to start doing it. And I've been like laying and visualizing white light opening here and just cleaning myself for the last month and a half. And I was thinking maybe this is also related to some kind of DNA upgrade, because at the same time started getting more memories and things like that. And I don't know. I mean, more intuitive for sure, but
what's going to start happening for people too, some of the examples of this DNA going online, for instance, you might start feeling waves of energy, so much Kundalini energy moving through your body that you have to just lie down. You can't do anything. You might feel pain inside your ears, like what's been happening to me. Normally when I go to high altitude, I mean, I already live 10,000 feet above sea level here in the Andes of Peru. But normally when I go even higher, because I love going hiking, I do hiking and I go to these sacred sites a lot and do healing work there. um, what's happening is normally my ears actually start to hurt when I go to high altitude, but this is happening here in my home. This is unprecedented, you know. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I'm not doing anything, and sometimes I have to go like this, you know, with my hands, and just close my eyes and just breathe. Okay, a lot of people are going to have really strong symptoms where I am. Oh my God, the energies here are a whole other level. As you can imagine, in the high Andes of Peru, with all these sacred sites made by extraterrestrials connected with the Lemuria, right? So these sites, the frequencies that they're emitting are really raising the frequency here in the Andes to a whole other level, you know, to the point where people have, you know, I feel people can't stay here if they're not in congruence with these super high frequencies. Like just not long ago, I witnessed a solar double rainbow around the sun. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And later I received information from my guides that it was actually them. It was actually them, and it was actually an interdimensional contact event, which is really interesting because when it happened, the only thing I could think was, it looks like a spaceship. It looks like an interdimensional spaceship above my head. When I looked up, it was so alien and just so, I just couldn't describe it. It's very difficult. It left a very big impression on me when it happened. I'm still integrating it as an experience, because because before this happened, there was a series of other synchronicities that happened, that connected me to this event. And I'm sharing all this because this is what starts to happen when you viscerally are starting to connect with the 5D. You know, like for example, when I take people to sacred sites, we see Mikarba light ships there. They just appear. It's crazy. It blows my mind. Like sometimes I'm walking with people, either their friends or their clients, and we're in the most gorgeous natural setting, high up in the mountains, no person for miles, you know, and we're walking along, and suddenly I get the download, we need to stop, you know. I don't even call it a download. It's just, you see, even with channeling, it starts to become a part of your life. Like, it's not like something separate from you, you know? So I didn't like stop and think, oh, I'm receiving a download. It didn't even cross my mind. I just received an intuitive feeling I needed to stop. So I said, we got to stop, you know? I think we just got to stop, close our eyes, and just take everything in. Take a nice deep breath, because we were in a really gorgeous, sacred part of the Sacred Valley here called Jinjedo, which has really ancient ruins, pre-Incan and Incan. And so when we stopped, then the other guidance I got was just to look up to the left, you know? So I did. I intuitively looked up, and there, as I looked up, was this amazing Mikarba light ship just flying across the sky. And it was just so magical. It was so synchronistic, so magical. My client actually freaked out a bit. He's never experienced anything like that. I mean, to me, it happens very regularly, you know, but he was very freaked out, and he had to lie down on the floor. He was, yeah, bless his heart. He was like, I can't believe it. He's like, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And so you know, it's important to talk about these experiences, because people, the audience out there, are already probably having some of these experiences, or you know, they're having different, let's say, movement of energy in your body followed by pain. You know, we have to be careful, because a lot of people who have Kundalini awakenings, they get sent to hospitals, but that's not the place they need to go. You know, they really need support. Like I had a lot of support from my family, because they're very spiritually inclined, you know, and that stability and that support helped me move through my experience. Now as it happens, the Kundalini, is very active in my body, meaning even though I'm talking to you right now, I feel my whole body buzzing with energy. It's like that for me all the time, 24/7. And it's been a little bit overwhelming for me. And it's only recently I've been coming into peace with the Kundalini, which is so important. I can't stress it, because for many years I was fighting the Kundalini. I didn't want it. I was afraid of it because it is very powerful. So I've had to undergo this whole journey, this whole dance with the Kundalini Shakti, to really surrender to her and to really ask her, guide me, show me. Because the Kundalini is actually, you can think of her or him or whatever, it doesn't necessarily have to be called her, but it is sometimes seen as a feminine energy. It's an aspect of your higher self. It's an aspect of your higher spirit, actually. That's all it is. But in the beginning, when it happened, I wasn't looking at it like that. Because the Kundalini, it has its own, it is a sentience too. You understand? It has its own expression, you see. And if you're not working in tandem with the Kundalini, that's when problems arise. Like, that's when resistance happens. Kundalini syndrome happens, where people might have very intense experiences with the Kundalini because, like I said, they're not kind of surrendering or being in harmony, with the Kundalini. And I felt that it was very important to share, because I know for sure there's people watching who might feel similar, because in some ways it feels like an alien energy too. This Kundalini.
I think also it comes in the right moment when you are ready, right? Like in my case, I was already doing the energy work like Qigong or Reiki type healing modalities before. So I think it wasn't a coincidence that I got into these types of things just to kind of stimulate the flow before the activation. So it kind of...
That's so true, because you know what happened to me? I was getting into out of body travel. I was actually going to lectures by a teacher who was talking about out of body travel. And later it actually developed into a relationship. So I had a romantic relationship with this person, which was a very significant activation, because after I met this person who was teaching astral projection, then I had the Kundalini awakening, synchronicity, and where I left my body. Had I not, prior to that experience, had I not gone to the out of body stuff, I think I would have been even more freaked out. I would have really been freaked out. I did have a degree of, let's say, a degree of calmness too when this experience happened with the Kundalini, which is important, But what a rude awakening it can be too, when we have these activations from reality.
Yeah. Some people apparently they can go through it have very difficult time, right? Shaking, yes. or not being able to drink any coffee and things like that. I've been also having very strange things lately where I stopped drinking coffee, and I think it is related to this solar activation, because it feels like I don't really need it. But let's get into the whole shift or ascension topic now, because this is really the big topic for today. And what's your understanding of ascension process into fifth density, and how did you get to understand it in the first place?
So it all actually started with the Kundalini, funnily enough. We're talking a lot of these things we're talking about are very relevant. But for many years, like I said, I was in denial of the Kundalini. I was actually sent to a Qigong school in China. My parents thought it would be a good idea to send me to a Qigong school. So if you're a parent and this is happening to your child, don't medicate them. Send them to a school that is specializing in these ancient energetic arts as they're known. So I went to a Qigong school. I was actually recruited. I was actually scouted by two Qigong teachers because they had heard about my experiences with Kundalini and out-of-body experiences and also contact from extraterrestrials. So they had heard about that through someone, and they wanted to come to my home and talk with me about some of my experiences. And so that's how it happened. I ended up going to China and living there for half a year and studying and actually becoming a qualified Qigong teacher and teaching Qigong in hospitals too when I returned to the UK. So this was all part of my awakening process to this idea that we are in a dimensional shift. We're transitioning from 3D, which is a more dense reality, and it is recognized by themes such as fear and separation, consciousness, whereas the 5D consciousness is more going towards this unity consciousness, compassion, love, interconnectivity. You see, that's what synchronicity is too. Synchronicity is like an advanced term or something for interconnectivity. It's, synchronicity, it increases when we start to get to know ourselves more intimately, when we start to ask questions about reality and the matrix, as people want to call it, because that's what's happening in this time. A lot of people are asking questions about reality, especially since 2020, because we all know what happened then. That was a massive spiritual awakening for the planet. And what I've been shown is that this 5D consciousness is connected to Lemuria. It's actually called the New Lemuria, the Lemurian Bridge, the 5D Lemurian Bridge, because Lemuria is rising again in consciousness all around the world. And I've been shown there's particular parts of the world that are going to, let's say, begin to anchor these frequencies more viscerally, just like that double rainbow, that halo, that sun halo around the sun. When it happened, it was such a 5D moment, shall we say. It was very surreal. It almost felt like another dimensional reality came down and overlaid on our dimension. These are the kinds of experiences people are going to start having, these contact experiences with these highly evolved beings that have highly evolved ways of making contact. Because do you honestly think a highly evolved race of beings is just going to show up here tomorrow? No, they're not going to do that. They know that their presence creates a certain timeline in and of itself. There's a certain timing to these events, and there's a certain nuance to them showing up in different ways. Like, for example, through the double solar rainbow. It wasn't just one rainbow around the sun, it was two. Like I said, I've never seen anything like that. I actually have some videos about it. And so for me, this 5D shift, it really involves a certain ego death. It really does. It really involves letting go of what we thought we were. Because what's happening with this 5D shift is that we're actually evolving as a species. A new species is actually being birthed right now through the Kundalini activation, through this remembrance that we're going through an ascension, we're going through a dimensional shift in consciousness. And that means everything we ever thought we knew is up for questioning. It's a state of unlearning and deprogramming from the matrix and being born anew. It's like a rebirthing that is happening for humanity right now. That's what the 5D, in essence, that's what it is for me. And over time, through different experiences, through self-exploration, through investing in myself, through following the breadcrumbs of synchronicity, that's what led me to these realizations, to these amazing synchronistic experiences, because synchronicity is the preference of these higher dimensional beings, especially interdimensional beings. They absolutely adore to create these anomalies. You can call them anomalies within the matrix, these synchronicities that really make you question, like they blow your mind. They make you realize that there's a higher intelligence here, actually, and it's supporting this shift from 3D to 5D, even though sometimes it can feel very challenging too. It's not always an easy path to be on the front line. You know, some of you watching, everyone's going to be at different points on the trajectory. Some of you watching will be further along in terms of the visceral experiences you're having, and some won't. You know, wherever you find yourself is perfect, unless you're not happy with that, and then you can change it according to, you know, different thoughts and behaviors and actions. But it's just knowing that these shifts are happening. We are going through this dimensional shift, which I've been shown is actually a certain timeline war going on between intradimensional beings, which is really amazing. And it kind of makes sense because earlier I was saying that Lemuria is rising again in consciousness, right? And so Lemuria is an ancient civilization, and people are starting to have remembrance. People are wanting to go to sacred sites to receive activations, because the sacred sites are serving as portals, as gateways to higher consciousness. Because a lot of the information I receive, no one told me. I didn't read it in a book. You see, that's what happens when you start going into these higher states. You start to receive information. Like, I would go to the sacred sites here, and I would just hear Lemuria, and I'd be like, what? I'd be like, what the hell? And then I would spend time at the parts of the sites I felt most drawn to. And guess what? They were always the oldest parts of the sites that I was most drawn to. I wasn't so concerned about the other parts, you know. It always just went straight to the oldest part. And when I was doing meditations there, or when I was doing some medicine work there, then I was shown another layer of the Lemurian consciousness and these amazing light codes. You know, because all of us, we're all set up in a unique way. Like me, I'm a very visual, I'm very creative, I'm highly creative, I'm very visual. So a lot of my experiences end up being like that, like very, you know, it depends what's your navigation system, what's your preference, you know. Some people lean more into logic, and they might be given certain logical path of synchronicities too. It's all depends, you know, on your essence, on your blueprint too.
I want to ask you, what's happening with 4D? Because always everyone says about shifting to 5D, but we still have 4D, right? And my understanding is that 4D is more like the transition and the end of like first 4, let's say, in the beginning of the next 4, more or less. So it's like the winter and spring, but it's also, I heard it's astral, right? It's like going through astral plane or something like that before we move into the adulthood, let's say. So what's happening with 4D? Why everyone talks about shifting to 5D and no one mentions 4D?
I mean, maybe it's easier for people to just put it in those terms, you know? Or maybe a lot of people are not experiencing 4D necessarily, so they're not talking about it as much. But I think more people will start talking about 4D, because the 4D, like you said, it is this astral plane, right? It's navigating the astral, which is connected with the dream time, right? So it's out of body experiences, greater lucid dreaming. Because guess what? In a lot of my dreams, I'm with extraterrestrial beings. I'm on board ships. Ships are coming towards me. I'm working with hybrid children who are extraterrestrial and human, you know. Sometimes I'm in classrooms and I'm teaching the children how to move objects with their mind or with their hands from far away, you know. And these places that we go to on these subtler levels, they're not just a figment of our imagination. They are realities that are existing alongside this one. And so the 4D, it really invites us to stabilize our consciousness within simultaneous realities. This is part of the higher shift too. You see, this is why it's such a gradual process, because it really is a recalibration of the way we've been living before. And there's so much light. There's so much light. Everyone talks about the dark a lot. Have you noticed? A lot of people put a lot of emphasis on the dark, and there is a lot of dark. And I'm not saying to look the other way. It's important to acknowledge it, you know, doing shadow work and inviting the shadow, understanding those parts of yourself so that you can understand what's happening in the world, right? But there's so much light. It's crazy. There's so much light coming. And because of that, that's also why people are having a hard time, because everything's being rearranged, recalibrated, right? The DNA is going online. People are having their siddhis activated. Siddhi is a Sanskrit word for supernatural abilities, but again, the terminology is outdated. It's not supernatural, it's super normal. Super normal. It's what the humans were designed for, you know. It's absolutely exciting when you start to, you know, kind of withdraw your attention from what's happening in the world, which is designed to distract, to pull down your frequency, you know, all these different things. And you start to focus on, okay, what does the new earth, what does 4D look like for me? Like for me, it looks like living in an amazing part of the world where I do what I love, you know, shamanic healing work with people from around the world, and double solar rainbows appear around the sun. I mean, you know, that's part of my, now I can see like, wow, that's very connected to these higher frequencies and where we're going and the types of experiences we're going to start to have. Another layer of that would be to have contact with interdimensional beings, which is happening with me already, with having these very visceral encounters with macabre light ships, right? And I'm still very here. And, you know, the thing is, right, when I share some of these experiences, some people, everyone, like I said, everyone's at a different point on their trajectory. Some people relate to it, but others don't, because they're not having that experience, right? But we all have to not invalidate each other just because it's not our experience. You know, this is part of humanity's maturing. This is also part of graduating from 3D to 4D, which is kind of like like training wheels, you see? Yeah, you can think of it like training wheels in the 4D, because when we're going into 5D, our thoughts are even more instant, you know? It's already happening for many of us. We're having instant manifestation. Synchronicity is going to a whole other level. And earlier,
and karma hits back quicker as well.
Yes. It's all speeding up. It's all, you know, it's all dancing together because there's a lot of light coming to this planet. A lot of ETs are supporting us, you know. A lot of angels, a lot of higher dimensional beings are cheering us on through this dimensional shift.
Do you think when we're going to be ascending over the next couple of years, do you think there's going to be a massive shift in society maybe like some kind of destruction of the old system or economic system might collapse, or some reforms. Because obviously for people who are living normal lives in the cities, if there's going to be these types of events, there's going to be a lot of upsetting emotions, I guess, as well. And what's your also tips on how people can become the 5D versions? Because my understanding is that it's not just we are going through a transition, we actually have to do some work. So the higher vibrations, the more you are a service to others, the more you align with the positive timeline in 5D, right? So this is how I see it. What's your views about it?
I think the most important thing in this time is to spend a little bit of time by yourself, to get to really know yourself. You know, I was recently hacked on my Facebook. Hacking is becoming a big thing right now, especially with the development of AI. And it meant that I didn't have access to my Facebook, my social media account for about 3 months, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And think about how attached we've all become to social media, which is an aspect of this AI too. And it took 3 months. It took that period of time of having a disconnection with the outer world actually too, so that I could really close my eyes and get to know myself, go inside myself, and really get to know who am I really? Who is Honovi Strongdeer? What am I here to do? What resonates? What lights me up? What lights a fire in my spirit? What are the synchronicities? What makes me come alive? You know, what is calling to my heart? You know, what makes me cry? You know, all these different things are giving us indications and clues about our purpose, our higher calling here, you know. And so a lot of you watching, I would say that has to be a starting point, because there's some of you who might have already thought you found your purpose, but no, universe is going to show you that's not so. There's another layer, you know. The learning never stops, the growth. There's always another layer of expansion. Many people are going to go through that in this time. So a lot of people who might already be established as coaches, as healers, maybe they're influencers, maybe they have their own podcast, they're going to be shown another layer of their higher calling in this time. This is what's happening because the consciousness is going more expansive, more lights coming in, and our ability to receive this information intuitively through synchronicities, through guidance, through different healing modalities is becoming much stronger. And so, yes, there is an element of work involved, but again, some of that comes back to certain belief systems too. We can make our journey more smoother when we're making more optimal choices, you know, choices like, for example, what we put in our body, our diet. Our diet is so important, and it affects everything, okay? It affects everything. So when you're eating super healthy, nutritious food, or let's say you're not eating, because let's face it, eating food is actually killing a lot of people. Most humans are over consuming on multiple levels, okay? Food, thoughts, you know, overconsumption, consumer, right? It's always pushed on us as a part of this matrix programming, actually. So I invite the audience members to start to minimize and let go of some of that. You know, for example, in practical terms, you'd have one less meal a day, or you would replace your meal with a juice, for example, or you would replace a meal with sunshine, You understand? These are very practical things that people can do to shift into these higher frequencies. Like today, I have to do this now almost every day, where in the morning after meditation, I drink the sun. If I don't do it, I don't feel right, you know? I really don't feel right. And I do it early. If you have a sun practice, I really would recommend to develop some kind of sun practice and start to connect your consciousness with this being, with this highly evolved being, the sun, because the sun is playing a key role too in this ascension process. And so it's very optimal to do an early morning practice between the time, let's say like 7 and 8. Or if you can't do that, maybe a little bit earlier. The reason I say earlier is because the sun, the rays are not so harmful in the morning. The UV rays, for example, get stronger later, which kind of have a harmful effect. So we have to be sensible and grounded too when we're doing these things, you know? And so if you have some practice, you know, I also do Surya Namaskar, which is a series of asanas in a yoga practice, right? Now, these things are going to start to come to you intuitively too. And it's about really listening and taking action on what you're being guided to do. You know, another aspect is when I do my drinking the sun, I'm totally naked, because naked is sacred. You see, in the past, that's how we were. It, you know, but the body has become very objectified, especially the female body, right? When we think of a female body, there's a lot of sexual connotations. There's a lot of fear around, you know, the body and what it represents, and people feeling uncomfortable because it's this vulnerability when you're completely naked like that, you know, but you are at one with the elements. It's so freeing, it's so beautiful, it's so innocent, and it's so pure actually. And so that's what I do in the morning. You know, it depends. I could do between 15 minutes to even half an hour, you know, depending on. And when I do that, I do certain breathing exercises too. You see, and these things, I'm sharing these things with everyone because I want you to all put these things into very practical terms, because we're not going to shift into a 4D or a 5D if we're not, you know, doing these practices and having a degree of self-discipline to follow through with these practices, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we need to keep raising our own vibrations to be well adjusted to the frequencies. I see people who are on low vibrations, you know, angry, egocentric, service to self, they're having hard time to adjust. They become more explosive, or health deteriorates and things like that, because we're entering higher energies, and if you're not compatible with them, that's gonna affect you, amplify who you are, or even, you know, in the negative ways. I also want to ask you, because I know you're doing a retreat in December.
Yes.
Tell us more about it. I've read that there might be contacts with extraterrestrials included in the price. Is it guaranteed?
Well, you could say you're talking to one right now. Yeah, you know, I'm doing this amazing 10-day international retreat called Ancient Activations Peru, Lemuria Arising, Shamanic Vision Quest. And
This is
we are
in
going
Peru,
to...
in Andes, right?
Yes, the Sacred Valley of Peru, where I live here. And it is a sacred shamanic vision quest with Kundalini activations and plant medicine at ancient sacred sites, which are connected with Lemuria. So it is a 10-day healing shamanic retreat where we're visiting these sites, and it's going to help people to connect with a powerful vision for for their life, because it's very important to get clear on what it is you're here to be in service to, or what is the next layer of your higher calling. Because like I said, a lot of people who are pioneers, entrepreneurs, and visionaries, they're going to be invited into another layer of their purpose in this time. And so the retreat is focusing on honing that in, connecting with a powerful vision, and having interdimensional contact, because wherever I go, I seem to attract contact from different beings. And every time people come with me to these sites, we just have the most incredible encounters, either with nature or with these extraterrestrial interdimensional frequencies. Because, for me, they're not separate. They're not actually separate. The most grounded thing for us that we can do is remember our innate connection to the earth and the stars. They've never been separate at all. This is, part of the programming. Like for example, some people think that, if we are going into these higher frequencies, that it's ungrounded. But the opposite is true. The most grounded thing we can do is express and embody our God-given potential, right? Our superhuman potential. That's what the retreat is actually exploring, superhuman potential. That's what's happening to me. When I go to the gym, I'm lifting over 200 kg, which is like 4 times my own body weight. I'm actually lifting more than some of the men at the gym. And, these abilities, this superhuman strength, not having to eat as much, like I only eat 1 meal a day. I do a lot of fasting. I drink the sunshine, right? These things, they're happening as a gradual process for those who are brave and open, and those who remember living like this. Because actually, the consciousness was much higher in cycles gone by. We were already living from 5D and beyond. The consciousness fell, and we fell into amnesia too. And now, because the light has returned and we're going into this new era of consciousness, people are awakening like never before. They're having very strange remembrances of living without food, for example. Living without food, living from light, being a solar human, right? Because solar consciousness, it's an ancient concept, right? And it's been explored in various different spiritual and esoteric traditions. And really it encompasses the understanding of the sun as a conscious, spiritual, angelic, energetic force, which is representing a higher state of consciousness and enlightenment and divine wisdom. That's why the sun is going through heightened solar activity, right? At this time. We're having amazing solar flares. We're having X-class solar flares, which are the largest solar flares. We're having a high degree of gamma light waves coming to this planet right now, right? And so solar consciousness is something that is also foundational on my retreat, because the retreat is not just about connecting with the stars, but it's also about connecting with the elements, with the sun, right? And this solar consciousness, it involves a deep connection with the sun as a spiritual source, as a cosmic energy. And we're going to be doing certain sun embodied practices in the morning, because the sun, it's actually giving information, and you can actually start to receive information. You can actually communicate with it, okay? This is happening for me. This is accessible to everyone, but whether you are putting your focus on that daily is another matter, right? Like I said earlier, as we shift into the 4D and 5D, we are being encouraged to develop different daily practices, right? So the retreat is really focusing on that, and it's really about recognizing the sun as a sentient being, like I said, as a highly evolved being, because sunlight, it actually activates the pineal gland, which is often referred to as the third eye, and it's this pine cone shaped endocrine gland, right? That is located deep within the brain, and it's also associated with various spiritual and metaphysical functions. And guess what? When you go to these sacred sites, excuse me, and you do meditation there, Kundalini work, raising the Kundalini, which is what we're focusing on the retreat too. And then you combine that with some kind of entheogen. Well, wow, it's like a whole other level.
See aliens.
So you're all invited. You can only get into this party if you're an alien, okay?
You're gonna see a whole team around you. Okay. So another thing I want to ask you, what about protection when you do plant medicine or any kind of work? Because we are surrounded by all sorts of energies and beings, and I think that not all of them are benevolent. And I've experienced quite a lot of that when I was doing plant medicines and things like that. I had interactions with negative entities in all sorts of ways. So how do you protect yourself? How someone can protect themselves, let's say, or avoid any kind of negative energies or beings or whatever, or during the ceremonies as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, protection. I have a bit of a controversial response to it. Primarily the way I look after myself is looking after my frequency. So every day, I'm tuning in with the tasks of the day, whether they're in alignment with my purpose, right?
Yeah.
Because when you are setting up your days and your time and your experiences to feed into that vision that you've created, it does become a certain protection mechanism in terms of the frequency that you're emitting. Because as you raise your energy, other people can feel that subconsciously too. So there's that element, there's that layer. And of course, there are other elements. Like one of the things I do like to do in particular is working with smudging. There's smudging can be very powerful, because when you're smudging, which is basically lighting certain pieces of wood on fire and letting the smoke go around your aura, your auric field of energy, you're actually interfacing with another sentience, actually, another being. And this is kind of overlaying with you and providing a certain protection. You can, because remember, everything, as we expand in consciousness, we become more interconnected. We start to realize the subtleties of things much more. And so we start to do these practices of smudging, for example. We start to look after our frequency. We meditate every day. We go into nature. This starts to really affect you, affect your field, and it starts to create a certain protection mechanism. This is what's actually happening, because as the frequencies get higher, we're going to repel people and magnetize others who are dancing where we're dancing. You see, that's how everything's going to start.
Yeah.
Because we have to be careful with protection too, because some people they go the opposite way. Because the thing with protection, it is important, but you have to approach it with the right consciousness. Meaning, when I another practice that I do is I imagine, I do a visualization where my heart center is opening really big, and a big shield of light is just coming out of my heart, and it's just surrounding me. And you know, when we do these visualizations, they actually have a visceral effect, you know, upon us.
Yeah, I definitely. So I definitely think, like you said, raising frequencies, being high vibrational, that's a good protection, because any kind of low energies, they don't like that. So if you're strong, you meditate, you eat healthy, you are aligned with your intentions and things like that.
And your
It's very,
purpose, you're aligned with your purpose. You're saying yes
yeah,
to it in little ways and in big ways. And as you do that, you're going to be supported. You know, that's, you know, this is the thing. Sometimes it's about just taking that leap of faith, because it can be scary, especially when you're being rerouted in your life. You're being shown, actually, no, you're not meant to do that. You're being called over here. This is what I've been shown. This is something I've walked through myself. You know, I got a little bit, sometimes we can get a little bit distracted by what other people are doing and lose our path and think we have to be like those people, like those teachers,
yeah.
you know? And then we have to come back and be like, actually, this is my authentic path, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes we block these developments because something often needs to close for something new to be open. So
Yeah.
people might have to lose something, or one thing has to end for that new path to begin, and we are clinched to it because, we think this is familiar, and sometimes it actually has to work in this way to be redirected towards something new. Yeah, I another thing I wanted to ask you, have you ever had like some kind of, when you were doing channelings or plant medicine, did you ever encounter, let's say, like some tricky beings that would
Yes.
try to, send you downloads and kind of use you one way or another, or send you
Yes,
some.
but it doesn't really happen to me, to be honest,
Uh-huh.
at all. And when it does happen, um, I know how to take care of business, shall we say? Because like I was saying, I've developed my own kind of methodologies. One of them is instead of contracting, you know, which is what we do by default when we encounter some of these beings, you have to literally train yourself to do the opposite. And you have to train yourself to meet them as an equal. Okay. Now, it's not easy to do this when you're coming up against, you know, a 12-foot whatever. Could be reptilian, could be extraterrestrial, or a number of things. But as you start to connect with your higher self and these other dimensions of yourself, so you start to connect with your own extraterrestrial counterparts, which are basically versions of you existing alongside this incarnation. As you start to interface with those parts, dance with them, communicate with them, receive information in these various ways, meditation, plant medicine work, going to sacred sites, all these things amplify these experiences. You start to become more confident. You increase your confidence, which then increases your frequency. You know, it's all interconnected. And then when you encounter these beings, you're able to meet them as your equal. And one of the things that I say is, I love you. I'm sorry. please forgive me, thank you, which is a Ho'oponopono prayer. And it's a very high frequency. It's a frequency of forgiveness, you know. And so when you're coming to these beings from such a frequency, they get really freaked out, actually. They get scared.
Yeah.
So this is my approach to some of these beings. I actually have a lot of compassion for some of them too, because some of them, you know, they're just kind of disconnected from that greater interconnected web or tapestry, or maybe certain decisions have led them on a certain trajectory into these lower vibratory fields. So I actually extend myself to them, and they actually get scared of me. So I flip the switch, you know. I mean, I flip the script. Sorry, so that. But I do it in a very playful and loving way. You know, when you approach things in that way, the being only has two choices. They can either step into that light with you, and then you're serving the purpose of helping them elevate, you know, and come out of that density, or they will have to leave that space, you know, because it's not like a vibrational match or whatever. But I think that's why I have experiences with super high dimensional beings who are these non-physical beings. You know, I think it is about stepping into our godhood, you know, and not from a place of, oh, look at me or my ego, but from this very pure, innocent place, returning to that Garden of Eden with the new Lemuria rising, right? This new Lemuria consciousness, it goes back to this Garden of Eden, this innocence, this pureness, this innate spiritual connection that we have, this remembrance of who we are. And so when we're meeting beings from that place, you know, they get a bit intimidated by that. So it's interesting. I think it's all about how we're approaching things. This idea of protection, it has many different layers to it. Depends where you're at in terms of relating to yourself and these different parts of yourself that you're embodying in these interactions, you see. So I hope that that made sense.
Yeah, treat them with some love, basically. Set them love, and they're gonna be out quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, is there anything you wanted to add to our conversation?
I would love to talk a little bit more about the new Lemuria, because I don't really hear anyone, not that many people talking about it. And so what I've been shown is that the new Lemuria, it's a spiritual concept that envisions a modern day revival or resurgence of the ancient civilization known as Lemuria. Okay. And like I said, Lemuria was this ancient advanced civilization that existed actually millions of years ago, up until about 12,000 years ago, when we had the last cataclysmic event, which was the Great Flood, right? And so it's often associated with concepts like interconnectivity, harmony, extraterrestrial contact, unity, a deep connection with nature, which is what a lot of people are going to be experiencing right now. You know, if I don't go to nature, I mean, I live in nature, I'm surrounded here by the Andes Mountains, but if I don't actually go out into nature, it actually affects me very viscerally. I need to be in nature every day, you know? And so a lot of people are going to feel like that, or they're going to feel like I need to be in the sunshine, right? And the idea of the new Lemuria, it's connected to the broader spiritual metaphysical framework of a greater shift in consciousness, which is what we were talking about today. And it's often referring to the 5D shift and the 4D that we were talking about earlier, which is basically an interim period. It's a bridge. The 4D is a bridge to the 5D. Like Michael was saying earlier, or this transition into the new earth, right? And so the 5D shift, it's representing a collective shift in humanity towards higher vibrational states, and it signifies a move away from this predominant 3D state, which is characterized more by duality, fear, separation, right? And so the new earth, the concept of the new earth aligns with this 5D shift. It envisions a transformed and harmonious planet. And what I've been shown is that not everyone is subscribing to this new Lemuria. There are two distinct timelines. One is going more in a transhuman direction and augmentation, and the other is going in an organic, natural trajectory, which is all about activating your DNA, your multidimensional DNA, raising your Kundalini, because the Kundalini activates the DNA, right? They're intertwined. And then that activation allows for certain superhuman, well, it's perceived as superhuman, but even my guides say that term will become outdated, because superhumans will become a certain norm too. Become a certain, it's very interesting how certain terminology can feel outdated, depending on where your consciousness is at. In this time, we're all going to be in different consciousnesses, weaving in and out of different consciousnesses. Like it's not uncommon to jump from 3D to 4D to 5D. This is what's going to be happening for people as we adjust to these higher frequencies. And so the new Lemuria, it's a specific aspect of this vision. So it's drawing upon the ancient Lemuria civilization and its association with spiritual wisdom, its association with being an intergalactic society, you see. And so this is what's happening. It's being reawakened, and it's manifesting in the modern world as part of this 5D shift. The new earth is actually the new Lemuria. That is what it is. And that's what I wanted to really share with the audience today.
Lemuria was coexisting with Atlantis?
Yes, it was at one point, but it actually came before Atlantis. It's actually millions of years. It was a very long epoch, shall we say, and it had many cycles to it, meaning that the beginning of that epoch, the beings would have been unrecognizable to the beings that we have on Earth today. They would have been very living from a very quantum state, refined state of consciousness, not needing to eat food, you see. But we are actually returning to that state. And what I've been shown is that there are actually timelines within timelines. So even within the Ascension, not everyone's going to want that path. Not everyone. Some people are going to want to continue eating food, which is fine too. It all depends on what your memory, resonance, synchronicity, what it's all guiding you into. Everyone's on their trajectory. And it's learning that we have to also be inclusive of different choices. Some people are going to choose this solar consciousness and solar human path. This is the path that I'm actually on. This is something that I do, every day. I drink the sunshine. I have reduced my food intake. I do a lot of juicing and fasting. So it's part of an embodied way, but it can't be forced. You can't force yourself. It happens very organically, it happens very naturally. You start to receive information. Like when I go to the sacred sites, I did some ceremonies there, and that's where I received a bunch of information. I was like, wow, I remember living like this. And it took a few months off of all social media for me to really go inside and trust that and commit to that on my path.
And do you think that the transhumanism is gonna be still occurring side by side. So like some people gonna choose
Yes.
the path.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. That's what I believe is going to happen. I'm not entirely sure of how it will actually look like. There's some people are saying there's going to be two different Earths. I mean, I really don't know. I don't think anyone really knows. I don't even think the universe knows right now. I think it's all in a state of kind of becoming, according to what we're choosing collectively and all these kind of things. And that's also exciting because it's kind of inviting us into the great unknown too. A lot of this ascension process, it is unknown. It's unknown territory because the ascensions that happened in the past, or the ascensions that happened on other planets, like Venus, for example, they're different to the ascension that's happening on the planet now, because we're in a different epoch, we're in a different era, the consciousness is much higher. So what happened before, what basically it means that there's a even greater potential for the most amazing, let's say, experience to be had through this ascension momentum. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's basically saying that it'll just make the previous higher civilizations not seem so great. That's what I've been shown, actually, that we are we're being invited into an even greater ascension than what's happened. Because I think people don't realize that, the ascension has happened here before, because the consciousness was already at a high level here before. You see, it's not like this is the first time in the whole, no, it's not like that. Our society, civilization goes through cyclical periods of time where sometimes the frequencies and consciousness is much higher, and then it drops in density,
Thank you for sharing that. So is there anything else you wanted to add to what you said already?
Yes, my last parting message with the audience is to not give up hope in this time, because there will be challenges, there will be surprises along this ascension journey. We will be tested in different ways, but it's always about returning to our hearts, returning to the vision, to the new Lemuria. This is not fantasy. Remember, this is happening right now. What we give our attention to, we manifest and we call it forward into our reality. So my invitation to all the listeners and all the audience is really put your attention on what the new earth looks like for you. Okay? What would you be doing? What would be your career? How would you be in service? How would you be showing up? Because all these things are going to shift us into that timeline as an embodied experience much quicker. And I personally believe ascension is a personal process. It doesn't necessarily have to be a collective shift, especially if you're a pioneer like myself. You're someone on the forefront, the cutting edge of consciousness. Don't wait for other people. Go within and get clear on your purpose here and commit to it, because you could be one of those people who are here to be a new earth leader, to be a way shower, to be someone who's here to take a stand for the truth, or someone who's here to challenge the status quo, to challenge, a lot of this matrix programming that we've all grown up with as children. But it's knowing that there's many of us. There's many star seeds all over the planet right now, okay? And we can't lose sight of that and get distracted by what's happening on the surface. Because what is being shown on the surface, it's not an accurate depiction of reality. Remember that. It's not an accurate depiction. There's a certain agenda, with that information that is released. So bring your attention back to your vision and step into your higher calling. Step into your discomfort, because the discomfort is the growth, is the expansion of consciousness. And open yourself to welcoming the new Lemuria.
That was really beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yes, sometimes the work we do, the matrix society looks at you sometimes funny, strangely, but actually at some point later on, they become interested more and more. And a lot of these subjects become more mainstream. And I can see it even, some people become just interested in what is that you do, how to learn how to meditate and all these things, because they see that you are different vibration, you're more happy, positive, things like that, and they want to know how is that you do it, right? And some of the things that people would ridicule 10, 20 years ago, now they become more accepted, even with just the notion about extraterrestrial life. There's so much more in the mainstream about it, right? So topics that were laughed at completely now are taken more seriously. So I think this is the way how things are going to be going. That's why people are asked, we are the first wave, to awaken people. And obviously there's going to be some ridicule, there's going to be some people who are not going to understand you. But at some point, whenever everyone's going to start catching up with what we are doing, and we're going to be the first ones or the pioneers. So yeah, thanks for.
And also I would like to add that thank you for sharing all of that, brother. I would like to add that it also depends, because in my reality, I don't get those experiences of ridicule or anything. You know what I mean? Like I've created a reality where I'm always meeting people who understand and are interconnected in some synchronistic way with the information that I'm sharing, and I really trust that about today's talk today too. I trust the audience, I trust you, I trust the universe, that this is all very divinely guided and orchestrated. And the times that we're in, the frequencies are such, like I said, that we're either magnetizing or we're repelling. The timeline splits are going to get they're going to get more clear. They're going to get more distinct, more refined. That's why it's important to bring your attention to the timeline that you want to be experiencing. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Not putting your attention on what you don't want to experience, which is where sometimes we can trip up, in life, where we're like getting all freaked out about something, and actually, we don't even know if that something has substance to it. So I think as we all step into the next level of embodiment, because the embodiment piece is very key for all of us, even those of us who are pioneers, leaders, we're all being called into that next layer, right? There's always that greater expansion that's being sought, and as we do that, I think everything else is going to really take care of itself. That's when you find yourself meeting the right people, you're in the right place, synchronistic encounters, abundance, opportunities, connections, all of this starts to anchor in. So that would be also my message.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you for sharing. So if people want to learn more about your work or are interested in the retreat you are doing in December, how can they contact you?
So they can go to my website, www.chaiwiththecosmos, like the drink chai. I love chai. I'm from India, so www.chaiwiththecosmos.com/retreats. And they can also find me on Facebook, which is Honovi Strongdeer. on Facebook, or they can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is @StrongDeerH. So those are some different ways we can connect. And I would love to see you at my retreat. If you feel like you are an alien in a human body here on this planet, and you have a very specific mission here to be of service and to embody your multidimensionality in this human existence, in this physical existence. So if that's you and you want to connect with a powerful vision at sacred sites, then maybe I'll see you at one of these extraterrestrial sites and we'll hop on board a ship here.
Okay, thanks for that. All right. Okay, thank you guys for checking this episode of TruthTheory podcast, and till next time. Thank you.
Peace
okay,
out.
Cool.